What kind of an impact will David Stone make in year one with the Oklahoma Sooners?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to all the everydayers for making Locked On Sooners their first listen every single day. And my buddy Jay Smith is going to be back with us tomorrow. He's dealing with some technical difficulties due to all of these storms that are happening in the Oklahoma City metro area on Tuesday night as we record. He will be back for our Thursday episode. So again, make sure you're locked in and locked on with Locked On Sooners. David Stone is going to be arguably the most watched true freshman for the Sooners going into 2024. He was the biggest recruitment in the 2024 recruiting cycle, the most notable, the recruitment that everybody had their eyes on, especially in Sooner Nation, because of the connection to Oklahoma, being from the state. Even though he finished his career at IMG Academy, he is a Sooner born. And the hope was to get him at Oklahoma because it's been so long since the Sooners had game-changing defensive tackles of his variety. And when they got him, it was like a breath of fresh air, a sigh of relief for Oklahoma fans when David Stone finally committed, because here it was. This is why it was so important to bring Brent Venables back, was to get guys on the roster, on the depth chart, that could reestablish the defensive line and defensive line dominance for the Sooners, hearkening back to the Tommy Harris days, the Gerald McCoy days, the Dusty Dvorak's. I mean, to a defensive line that was creating so much havoc for opposing offenses back in the day of Brent Venables. You go to those Clemson ones, Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, dudes that are still having very, very successful NFL careers because of Brent Venables and what they were able to accomplish at Clemson. Well, now you got one. You got one in David Stone. And On3 considers David Stone the top freshman defensive lineman heading into 2024. Interesting, though, because of the way On3 kind of handled his rankings towards the end of his recruitment. No love lost between David Stone and On3. But fascinating that he is atop the list. And we want to run down the list here real quick before we just talk about what kind of an impact David Stone will make for the Sooners. David Stone came in at number 1 ahead of LJ McCray at Florida, Dominic McKinley of LSU, a very familiar name that we covered extensively last year during the recruitment of Dominic, who was, being sought after by Texas, Oklahoma, and LSU. At 4 and 5 are Miami players, Justin Scott and Armando Blount. Jay Jonye at Georgia, again, another familiar name that Oklahoma was heavily recruiting. Charleston Collins at Arkansas, Aiden Breland at Oregon, Jeremiah Beeman at Alabama, and then Cam Franklin at Ole Miss. So fascinating that David Stone comes in ahead of some of these names that at the end of the cycle were ranked ahead of him, according to On3. But with David Stone, you've got a dude that, towards the end of spring ball, Brent Venables said he was 300 pounds, which makes him game ready. Like, he's not coming to Oklahoma having to now add more weight over the summer to get ready to play his true freshman season. But what kind of an impact will he have? I don't think he's going to start for Oklahoma. If he does, probably some things went wrong on the injury front for the Sooners at defensive tackle. And that's not to say that David Stone's not fully capable of ascending into a starter's role. He's got the talent, but I think what's going to happen is he's going to kind of mix in a rotational role in the 2 deep. He'll be part of that rotation at 3 technique defensive tackle, the dude that's lining up between the guard and the tackle, and in some 3-man fronts, you might see him play some defensive end. I do think you'll see him in some short yardage goal line situations, but I mean, there's still development that needs to happen, both physically, both from a skills standpoint. I mean, he comes in a very finished product due to his time at IMG Academy, but I think there's still work to be done. And that's true for every freshman, right? No true freshman comes to campus like basically ready for the NFL. Maybe an Adrian Peterson might have been that guy that just showed up and you just knew like, okay, if there was ever a player that didn't need to spend time in college, it's Adrian Peterson. Well, that's not true for 99.99% of college athletes. They've got development that has to take place. So he's going to continue to get stronger over the summer workout period, going to continue to refine his body and get himself ready to go. But I mean, I very much see him stacking up in that 2-3 deep where, okay, if you want to call Dominic Williams your starting 3 technique, okay, David Stone might play behind Grayson Halton, or those two might battle it out for those second team reps. If you want to call Dominic Williams your starting nose tackle, well, then you're probably starting Grayson Halton at 3 technique. Again, a dude that's got a good juice, can get off the line of scrimmage, can penetrate into the backfield to make plays. And then David Stone is likely taking those second team reps. But we'll also have to contend with guys like Ashton Sanders and Marcus Strong, Davin Sears, who the coaching staff was really, really high on this spring. So there's good depth at defensive tackle. And the good news about it is whatever you get out of David Stone and also Jayden Jackson, your true freshman defensive tackles, man, it's all gravy. You don't want to have high expectations for true freshmen coming in. Even though he's a 5-star, even though he is the most anticipated defensive player that Oklahoma's added in a decade, you can't have these lofty expectations for defensive tackle play because it's a totally different game. Going from playing offensive linemen who are 280, 290, maybe 300 on a regular basis to playing against guys that are 330, 320, some that are going to be 340. You know, there's a big difference between being a high school senior and a senior in college or a junior in college. 3-4 years of, you know, strength and conditioning in a Power 5 strength and conditioning room, like under strength and conditioning coach, like that is a huge difference than what you get in high school. Again, David Stone's got the skills, he's got the mentality, he's got the work ethic, he's got all the intangibles to come in and make a difference and make a significant impact. I think probably what we see out of him in 2024 is a dude that gets 10 to 20 snaps a game. You'll probably see him a lot in the non-conference early in the season, those first 3 games against Temple, Tulane, and Houston. And you probably see a lot of them against Maine. I don't think they're going to concern themselves with a redshirt year because this is going to be one of those guys that can make an impact for you. Put him out there, third down situations, let him go get after the passer, just kind of simplify things for him to where he's not having to play, you know, rundowns all the time. You get him out there, get him in situations where he's going to be at his best. And you just say, hey, go get the quarterback, man. We're not going to put you in situations where you're having to guess and make the right decision. When we put you out there, we're going to put you in situations where, hey, you can just go do what you do best and go rush the passer. There'll be time to figure out all your keys and all your cues, how to work in those defensive tackle twists and those tackle end stunts. There's going to be time for all that. We'll figure all that out. But for now, early in the season, as you get acclimated to college football, go get that quarterback and have some fun, man. But I think he's going to make an impact. It's surprising to see Jayden Jackson left off this list. Again, if there's anybody higher on Jayden Jackson than I am, I'd love to meet him because I think this dude is going to be as impactful as David Stone is by the time their Sooner careers are finished. We're going to be talking about him like we talked about Tommy Harris, like we talked about Gerald McCoy. Jayden Jackson is going to be that impactful as well. The dude's going to be able to play a lot of nose tackle for you. You'll also be able to line him up at 3 technique because of his quickness and his ability to get into the backfield as well. Strong, quick, fast. The Sooners, man, they've got 2 great defensive tackle prospects in Stone and Jackson that are going to have elite production and performances for the University of Oklahoma during their time with the Sooners. Another player they're hoping is going to have big time production, CJ Nickson, who commits to Oklahoma. We're going to discuss coming up next on Locked On Sooners. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. If you're looking for something to do in the Oklahoma City area, hey, the Oklahoma City Dodgers, man, they play at a fantastic venue. They're going to be hosting the Las Vegas Aviators over 4th of July weekend, and there are great deals available from $23 and up on 4th of July. And then throughout the weekend, you can get them as low as $18. Great tickets, great for the family. I know the summer's heating up, but hey, you still want to get outside. You still want to go enjoy the ballpark, get you a dog, get you some nachos, maybe get you a beer, a brew. Like, you're going to want to go and have fun. Go to Game Time where you can get the great last minute deals, and you can get those great views from the app on what you're going to be looking at from your seat, but you can only do it over at Game Time. So go download the Game Time app today, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Oklahoma Sooners added another 4-star prospect to the 2025 recruiting class in CJ Nickson, the edge rusher out of Weatherford, Oklahoma. This comes a day after losing Max Granville to Penn State, but CJ Nickson was always part of the plan. Nothing changed. Nothing was going to change. If Max Granville committed to Oklahoma, CJ Nickson was still a part of their plans. So don't take this as, oh man, they didn't get Granville, so they had to pivot to Nickson. No, Nickson was always a priority. Being in state, being a very, very talented kid in his own right, they were always going to have space for CJ Nickson on this roster. But the Oklahoma Sooners get that commitment over Oklahoma State. He had offers from Missouri, from Auburn. He had big time offers across the board. And this is a big time playmaker for the Sooners. 6'6", 210, 220 pounds, a guy that's got some room to fill out his frame for the football field, but is also going to make an impact for Porter Moser on the basketball court. And the athleticism is there. I mean, you could see him playing both ways at Weatherford and understand that this is a guy that could probably go a lot of places and play tight end, play wide receiver, and do that at the Power 5 level for a lot of programs. But for Oklahoma, they see him as a defensive end. And again, it just adds another twitchy, athletic, quick, and long piece to the puzzle to go along with Alexander Shield Knight in this class, and added to a 2024 class that features Nigel Smith and Danny Okoye and Wyatt Gilmore. I mean, the depth chart that Miguel Chavis is putting together at defensive end over the next couple of years is, man, it's super athletic and it's super long. And that's going to be really, really fascinating to watch when they get on the field. But for Nickson, man, I love the dude's game because he's got a really good get off. He plays with good leverage, plays with a great motor, and uses that length to his advantage with a good long arm, and is able to, work offensive tackles back into the pocket and make quarterbacks uncomfortable with what he's able to do. And I mean, you can't understate the impact that it's going to have for Moser and the basketball team, where they don't have to give him a scholarship, but he's a guy that is going to have an impact because he's played really, really well in AAU ball. I think he averaged 12 plus points a game for Team Griffin on the club basketball circuit. So this is a guy that is a legit basketball prospect as well. But he's going to bring another juicy pass rush, possibility to Oklahoma Sooners defense when he gets on campus in 2025. You look at the potential depth chart for 2025, and I imagine we'll still have R. Mason Thomas. We'll still have Adepoja Adebaware. And then you add to those guys, Nigel Smith and Danny Okoye and Wyatt Gilmore and Alexander Shield Knight and CJ Nickson. And then who knows what else they do in the transfer portal, but that is a really, really nice depth chart for 2025. And it's not maybe even done. They're looking at Cade Petrick, the defensive end prospect out of North Dakota. Every prediction from across the country, across the Midwest, from schools or analysts that cover schools that have been recruiting him, everything's favoring the Sooners at this point. And it would be shocking if it didn't go that direction. But you add that, and again, Miguel Chavis has done a great job adding big-time prospects to his defensive end room. Now it's just a matter of development. It's a matter of seeing guys like R. Mason Thomas and Adepoju Adebawore taking steps. Seeing a guy like Ethan Downs really put it all together in this final season for the Sooners. A guy like Caden Woolard, who we talked about a few weeks ago as maybe someone who's flying under the radar with Oklahoma, but has good production in the MAC with 9.5 sacks last year. Just getting those guys, getting even the veterans, from the true freshmen to the veterans, getting everybody to take another step in their production, in their development, in their performance. And that's really all that's left for Miguel Chavis to do, because we've seen the recruiting. The recruiting is really good. And I think the defensive end group has been good. It's been solid to good. Ethan Downs has been really good. I thought they got something out of Trace Ford. They got something out of Jonah Luula last year. Rondo Bothroyd didn't quite live up to expectations, but maybe those expectations were a little too lofty for a guy that probably is a tweener defensive end, defensive tackle. But I mean, you've got some guys like R. Mason Thomas. All he just needs to do is stay healthy. And I think the breakout happens. Adepoju Adebawore, just time. It just takes time, takes building strength and conditioning, and just better understanding what he's trying to do out there as a pass rusher. The athleticism's there. I mean, it's all there for him to put together. Caden Woolard, could this be the guy that kind of like, Jacob Lacey was last year, or Dejon Terry was last year? Could he make a similar impact where he just helps transform the defensive line with what he's able to do on the field? But that's really it. I mean, Miguel Chavis has recruited at a very high level. He's getting blue chip prospects every year. He's added a 5-star in PJ. And now we just develop both as people and as players, and the impact will happen. We're going to see this team take off over the next few years, especially at defensive end. We're going to start seeing that pass rush productivity really skyrocket, I believe. And I think it starts this year with R. Mason Thomas and Ethan Downs. I think those two guys lead the way at defensive end and have significant production for the Sooners. Not just pressures, but I think they both flirt with 6, 7, 8 sacks, both of those guys. And that's going to help so much for Oklahoma's defense. And it's going to open up so much for those guys in the middle. And it's going to make life so much easier on your cornerback group that they're not having to sit out there and cover for 4, 5, 6 seconds at a time because you can't generate a pass rush. I think that's going to change this year. Another thing that's changing, Oklahoma softball added another one. Coming up, we'll discuss what she brings to the table and what it means for the Oklahoma Sooners moving forward. Coming up on Locked On Sooners. So the Oklahoma Sooners added their third player via the transfer portal in Ailana Agbayani out of BYU. She had a phenomenal year for the Cougars this last year, a really good offense. She primarily played in the leadoff spot, hit .431 with 5 home runs, 33 RBIs. She added 9 doubles, 2 triples, and led the team also with 30 walks and led them in on-base percentage. Her on-base percentage and her batting average would have led the Sooners in 2024. That's how good she was. Against the Oklahoma Sooners in BYU's 9-4 win back in April, she went 4 for 5 with 2 doubles, 2 RBIs. Salty. She can also pitch a little bit, though I don't know how much Oklahoma will have her pitch, but that is a possibility for them. If they want to try and save some innings at some point with somebody, they might let her throw some. In that win over Oklahoma, she threw a third of an inning. She got credited with the win. And she's got that in her toolbox. So that's a very important add. So she joins Abby Dayton, Isabella Emmerling as transfer portal additions. And now Oklahoma's kind of figured out up the middle. They got their catcher, they got their shortstop or second baseman, and they got their center fielder. But Agbayani, she's athletic enough that she could probably play some outfield for you if you need her to. Right now, other than Dayton, probably your outfield's going to consist of Dayton and Cassidy Pickering. And then we'll see what else. Hannah Core, who platooned some in the outfield. She had back surgery, so we don't know what her timeline is going to look like for 2025, but you could have Agbayani playing in the outfield. And a lot of this is going to depend on what else Oklahoma adds. It's going to depend on what your true freshmen do this fall. If they stand out in a way that allows them to be this year's Cassidy Pickering or Ella Parker and take on significant roles for the Sooners, then, I mean, there's a good chance that, hey, maybe, if one of those middle infielders like a Tia Malloy, maybe she takes one of those middle infield spots. Somebody else, one of the other true freshmen, takes the other one, and Agbayani, she goes and plays in the outfield for you. Well, she's athletic enough to do that, and Oklahoma's done that. Alyssa Brito, she played in the outfield before moving to third base for Oklahoma the last 2 years. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that we see Agbayani change positions, but given the need that you don't have Tiare Jennings, you don't have Elena Torres or Avery Hodge coming back, that your middle infield is pretty much gone. I could see Agbayani playing that spot. I could also see her moving over to third too, because you don't have a third baseman. You lost Alyssa Brito, excuse me. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how Patty Gasso puts this all together, because you lose 10 seniors, you lose 3 to the transfer portal. That's a lot. That's a big amount of turnover for a team. And yeah, you bring in 8 true freshmen as part of your 2024 signing class. You've got 3 transfer portal additions. I think there's 2 more scholarships to work with. We know one of those is going to be saved for a particular pitcher in Nyjah Kennedy, though we don't know what her timeline looks like as far as a commitment date is concerned. Could be any day, could be a month from now, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Oklahoma look to add another infielder at least to add some depth, add some competition, because, hey, listen, they're going to have some true freshmen that are going to compete for starting roles, but you don't want to have your entire lineup full of true freshmen. Are you going to be able to sprinkle them in? Yeah. But you want to be able to have some veterans. And I think with Agbayani, like, you've got a player now that can lead off for you. So if we look at a projected lineup, I mean, Agbayani, maybe she bats first for you. Ella Parker, she seemed to really take hold of that number 2 spot in the order this year. So you got Ella Parker batting second. I could see them bumping Cassidy Pickering up to third and letting her hit behind Ella Parker, who was an on-base machine for the Sooners. So if you get, Agbayani batting 1, Parker batting 2, and Cassidy Pickering batting third, like, that's great potential for RBIs for Pickering, because Parker will get on, and they'll probably use a designated runner for her. Batting fourth, I could see Emmerling kind of taking that spot, similar to what Kinsey Hansen was doing at times. Alyssa Brito, she batted fourth quite often for the Sooners, but Hansen stepped into that as well. Emmerling's got the pop, 14 home runs, 50 something RBIs, and she, hit for a good average, 380. Would not be surprising, but I could also see Abby Dayton, batting third and Pickering batting fourth, or flip flop that. Dayton hit for a good average, may not have hit for a lot of power, but I mean, she had a great average this year, led the Pac-12 in batting average. So that top of the order is going to be really, really fascinating. And, if you say, okay, Pickering's batting third, Emmerling's going to bat fifth, and then Emmerling's going to bat fourth, and then Dayton fifth. Then you got Sydney Sanders you can, put in there in the 6th hole. Yeah, she didn't hit for a great average, but man, she got on base a lot, led the Sooners in walks. And then, came in clutch in the postseason with big hits, big home runs. That Texas, bases clearing double that helped them win that game. I mean, that was absolutely huge. So don't completely write off Sydney Sanders as being an impactful part of the lineup this next year. And then, so if that is kind of like your 1 through 6, or at least 6 of your 9, you're feeling a little bit better about, okay, now we just have 3 more spots, and that could be, 3 true freshmen. It could be Nellie McEnroe. I mean, there's options here where you feel a little bit more comfortable inserting a group of true freshmen than maybe if you would have had to do 5 or 6 of them. No. So if like Tia Malloy is one of your everyday players in the middle infield, I think you're feeling a lot better about that. And listen, I mentioned her, but there's a big group of true freshmen that all could have significant roles for the Sooners in 2025. Like they could all play a role. And I mean, you might see Patty Gasso just mix and match all season long, at least until they get to the postseason. And maybe even after that, where she just plays everybody and she just gets everybody experience as they continue to develop and find out who's going to be in those significant roles for Oklahoma. The great thing about what Patty Gasso was doing in the transfer portal is she's not just getting 1 year rentals. Like she's getting players that are going to be with Oklahoma for multiple years. They have multiple years of eligibility left. And so what you get out of, like, you're building something. This isn't just a 2025 roster. This is a 2025 and 2026 roster. So next offseason, you're not going to be experiencing a whole lot of turnover after whatever Oklahoma does in 2025. But she's loading up once again and is going to have a group of bats at the top of her lineup that may not hit as many home runs as this last group did. But we may never see that again with, Tiare Jennings being what she finished number 3 all time in home runs in a career. Following Jocelyn Allo, the all-time home runs queen. Kinsey Hansen, who hit a bunch of home runs. Alyssa Brito, who hit a bunch of home runs. Jada Coleman, who really found her power stroke over the last 2 years. Like we may never see that again. It's possible that we will. I mean, Patty Gasso is recruiting like crazy and she develops, and JT Gasso is one of the best hitting instructors as well. There's a good chance that we do see that, but we may not see it this year. But I do think they're still going to be very, very productive offensively. It just come in the way of doubles, singles, playing a little more small ball, getting on base, moving runners around. And then hopefully you add a pitcher that's able to be this year's Kelly Maxwell, that can grind out those tough innings, be a big time, performer for you. And in a 1-2 with Kirsten Deal, I mean, I think that's going to be pretty strong, especially if it ends up being Nyjah Kennedy. If it's Nyjah Kennedy, you got Nyjah Kennedy and Kirsten Deal, dude, it's over. I'm sorry. It's all done. Kirsten Deal could be your ace this year. I mean, she is going to be really, really good. She took a big step from her true freshman season to her sophomore year and was really, really good at different times throughout the year. I imagine she'll continue to get better. But I imagine Oklahoma will look to add another pitcher to go along with Deal, Peyton Monticelli as well. So it's going to be so much fun to watch this fall as Patty Gasso welcomes all these transfer additions and the true freshmen. But how it all comes together, man, it's going to be really, really fun to watch and to break down. And we'll continue to do it here on Locked On Sooners. So subscribe to Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the show on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you like to get your socials. And again, subscribe. Be here with us every single day. Follow Jay on Twitter at Unfair Sports. Follow myself on Twitter at John9Williams. But until next time, when Jay Smith will be back with us, barring any more storms going through the Oklahoma City area, I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.